Welcome back to our second topic today. I have Brian Curran joining me as we start to explore the true cost of implementing a quality management system and expanding it throughout your organization, especially into that manufacturing area, where sometimes the cost of implementing is misconstrued or misunderstood or even a little bit scary as you start working your way into digitizing and elevating that system of record in your manufacturing environments. Getting your COGS lowered and avoiding those costly mistakes will be some of the things we talk about.
And don't forget, Terrance, there's all of the hidden costs as well. Sometimes we talk about these as ripple effects or cascading, things that you might not consider. If you have paper-based or paper-generated errors, that translates into maybe extra expedited shipping costs and overtime costs and recalls, etc. So not just the cost that you see, but also the ripple effect of those costs. So my background, just a little bit. Started out with IBM, really large company, moved to a small startup and working with MasterControl, most pertinent to today's conversation, for almost 20 years, beginning in 2002.
That makes you a lifer at this point, right?
Almost a lifer.
And again, I'm Terrance Holbrook. I've spent 20 plus years in manufacturing, several years in international medical device development, and I've spent a whole bunch of time with MasterControl the last 7 years working on the manufacturing data collection and automation systems, as well as I work with some major corporations across the globe in the machine learning and artificial intelligence data mining. So, we're going to start off with one of my favorite parts of cost, which is product specifications. The whole root of the cost in manufacturing is what it costs to make the part, whether it's the equipment to do so, the resources to do so, the building and facility to do so, and of course the materials. And one of the things that I ran across in my medical device environment when working with international suppliers is a implied cost of quality. For example, here in the United States, when you order a part, and I did this a long time ago with blades for some medical device equipment, internally in the US, when you ordered and you had your specification, the part cost came back significantly higher than when I bid it, let's say, in Taiwan or China. The irony is when we went to receive those parts from China, those parts were inferior, but it wasn't anything outside of my specifications. Understanding and learning the true cost in manufacturing involves bringing all that information, bringing all that data into a center point and removing the implied and putting data behind your systems.
And one thing I'd mention on that one is what Terrance talks about doesn't sound like what most people talk about when you're thinking about quality management system. Too often the quality management software has been relegated to the QA department. And today we're going to be talking about extending quality much beyond just the QA department. And we'll have multiple stories to support that. But for today, think about quality not being just the compliance check marks as shown on the screen, but really true quality across the organization, including the manufacturing group.
So the question, of course, is how? How do we get that culture of quality across the organization, which does lower cost? It lowers costs through not having to pull items off that are malfunctioning or not working as intended, making sure that ethical products make it into the market, and having very few Kappas, very few information siloed systems where we're continually wasting resources and time trying to look up training checks or see if it's a 4 or a 9 or a 1 or a 7. There's a whole bunch of elements we can do in digitizing that removes a bunch of those human errors which affect the bottom line and increase the manufacturing cost.
And if you think about what MasterControl can do and think about what our customers' environments are, typically if you think about them being a big box, big manufacturing site, quality group often is up on the second floor and they're in a corner of the building, maybe consuming 20,000 square feet. But they are responsible for what happens across the entire 200,000 square feet. But what's out on the shop floor? Paper. Terrance mentions digitizing, but in the life sciences world, 99% of the customers that we see still have paper out on the shop floor and paper-based processes for all of what they are doing out on the shop floor. So that's one of the keys is, as you want to improve quality, to expand across your organization, you have to take care of more of the paper, get rid of the paper.
Well, you can't test quality in after the fact.
True. You can try. Okay, so SOPs, this is one of those areas that when I first came to MasterControl in 2002, we dealt with. And I treat SOPs and work instructions very similarly. Effectively, when you go out on the shop floor, what are people using in a life sciences manufacturing environment? They need to be using the right instructions, which are composed of or comprised in the work instructions and the SOPs. The problem is, all the shop floors that I see have paper. And so you have all the traditional quality problems associated with paper, rogue documents, out-of-date documents, et cetera, and those lead to cascading problems. So not only is that in the instructions, but it's also in the data capture that you're going to get those errors.
Well, and speaking of the data capture, again, quality is not a documentation. Quality is the part going out ethical and meeting the standards required to make the use of that part, whether it's a regulated part, non-regulated part, a critical, I mean, in today's world with COVID, a respirator, right? It all boils down to what is quality. I'll tell you, one of our clients and I've had this relatively a few times, but you're sitting there and we're talking about how to digitize, how to bring manufacturing to that next level and bring that unsiloed culture together where live and real-time information has helped driving quality. It's very interesting to pull those work instructions, to pull those SOPs, and have quality and manufacturing at the table talking about them. Quality will say, this is exactly how we do something, and manufacturing will say, no, that's not how we do it. Because manufacturing will say, no, we do it this way because we know it makes a quality part, which completely removes the culture of equality and the real quality efficacy throughout the company and turns it into backroom quality instead of quality at the source.
Here's another area MasterControl has done a very long time, and it's also a key problem that most of our customers see, and that is you see the huge stack of papers. Over time, it seems that our training has shifted from being meaningful training into one of just checking the box and read and understood. And the problem with that is it leads to so many human errors. As you can see some of the bullets on this slide, the human errors, illegible handwriting, etc. Those are all problems associated with the paper, but we also have one customer recently that we found out when they get a new person in, the headaches associated with teaching the person all of the GMP requirements, how to cross things out, how to sign, what color ink, those are all removed when you go digital. It's as easy as using an app if you're using a digital platform versus trying to teach someone how to use the arcane paper.
Oh, exactly. And when did training become reading a piece of paper instead of building a quality product? I mean, I come from a class 3 type machining environment, and we used to have operators come in, they did their GMP trainings. You'd have somebody call in, and I tell this story to scare people sometimes for fun. It's like, because is that person really trained on something we're about to have them do? For example, if somebody calls off on a shift, we may move somebody over to deal with a go, no-go gauge on a critical measurement. What's a go, no-go gauge? How hard can it be, right? It either fits or it doesn't. But his paperwork and training wasn't up to date, let's say.
But manufacturing has an attitude that they have to get the job done regardless of all the back office stuff. So that's why they move forward with possibly making more mistakes than they really need to.
Yep, exactly.
So from a documentation perspective, you can see the logo or the icon on the bottom right, Industry 4.0. I'll leverage one of the things I hear about that. It's time to upgrade your culture of quality. And what we mean by that is similar to what Terrance says. You have to go beyond just the documentation. It is important to get everything documented, but it's more important to get the culture of quality spread throughout the organization. And the longer we leave the software up in the back office on the 20,000 square foot offices versus the 200,000 square foot plant floor, the longer we're going to be dealing with the problems associated with a very isolated set of quality people. And so then, and also the problems associated with disparate systems. So the goal of this presentation is to talk about, how you look at quality across your organization and the benefits that you can derive by looking at the cost across the entire organization as well.
Oh, exactly. But what is Industry 4.0? You know, I read that all over the place, and it can boil down to something, in my opinion, very simple. It's connected data and connected systems that provide insights to adapt quickly. On the manufacturing floor, it is mandatory that it can be adapted. If you can't adapt, then your schedule falls behind, parts go out bad, right? And so Industry 4.0 is all about taking that information that's trapped in paper, that's trapped in Word documents that can't be data mined, and pulling that information together so that we can intelligently start to adapt our manufacturing systems with all the industry buzzwords, machine learning, and the features on top of it, artificial intelligence. None of that is possible if the information is disparate and siloed.
Totally agree.
So, and of course, once you manufacture it, the last step is shipping it. And I know, Brian, you brought up earlier some of the effects, the soft costs afterwards. You know, what is the true value of a QMS? Is it before the product's built, during development? Is it during the product manufacturing, or is it after? Or is it across the entire board? You know, quality management system is not a computer system. It's not a paper-based system. A quality management system is that culture of quality where we built quality in throughout the organization to ship that product. But what happens, again, if we've got disparate systems for customer complaints, for customer recalls, for customer issues in the field? A story I like to do is, I'm an auditor, have been for many years, and there's two different types of audits, right? There's the friendly type of audits, and there's the audits that are for cause, right? The guy they call when things go wrong, right? So what happens with all of those, because those are complex systems?
Sure. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is the feeling of us versus them. And Terrance mentioned disparate systems. If you have your quality group and your manufacturing group and they're not using a similar platform, a similar digital solution, it leads to us versus them, and it's not connected. And so that's definitely one of the things that we think, and when you're looking at expanding the quality management system across your organization, you need a digital tool, not disparate systems, so that it brings the people together, not just the software and the data.
Oh, are you saying MasterControl has something to do that?
MasterControl might have something to do that.
Awesome. And speaking of that connected across the systems, the Kappa and the external events, one of my favorite terminologies was coined, death by Kappa.
That sure sounds morbid.
It does. But it's true. Kappas by nature just seem to stack at companies because the information is not relative. You can't look at the risks after and trend them and make sure that they've been effective. The hardest part of the Kappa system is getting to the end, right? Well, in a digital system, it is much more relevant and easy to have a quality Kappa system for dealing with those customer complaints and issues and events that happen with your products in the field.
And if you think about the Kappa and investigating data, Terrance mentioned earlier, where does your data exist today? It's probably on paper. It's probably locked up in bankers' boxes. So again, another reason to have a digital system so that you can go back and do investigations and support your inspections and all of the investigations that happen after the fact.
Yes, and those banker boxes, they can crack floors if they get too many, and they cost money to store, so.
Yep, more hidden
back
cost.
To the cost of quality management. So again, what do we need to know as we're moving across the organization, implementing that culture of quality, really starting to look at how can we reduce errors, how can we increase cycle times, how can we make a quality, ethical product that we can ship on time? Well, there's all kinds of resources that we have available. There's all kinds of resources, the FDA and international KFDAs and Health Canada and EU and Anvisa. There's all kinds of groups out there to help with us.
including some of these resources. So we have a number of partners across the globe. Here's a listing of 5 that could participate and help you out. If you contact us, I'm sure we have additional resources available as well.
Okay, so to wrap up today's session, we're going to go briefly over the points we addressed, and we're going to start with the scalability aspect, especially in today's world with COVID, a company's ability to scale and adapt with the resources that are being constrained, whether the supply chain issues that we have with international shipping, or whether it's just simple supply and demand. Like masks, for example, who would have known that we'd have makers of spandex sleeves and sport bikes making masks, right, and shipping them out.
Car makers trying to make respirators.
Exactly, yes. So being able to be flexible, you can't do that without a digitized quality system. You can't scale paper. You can't scale if the human errors are already costing your environment. And the relative cost to a quality management system, you will be surprised at your return on your investment. We see anywhere from 6 months to 18 months full return in a lot of cases.
And to just expound on what Terrance said there, scalability, speed to market, increased revenue, those are different terms than we've been describing for the last 15 minutes. And one of the things we'd recommend is when you're thinking about the cost of quality, make sure you think about the downstream impacts, because that will lead you to business terms that your executives and you will probably understand and appreciate more. ROI, revenue, faster cycle times, all of those things, that's what you gain when you improve managing the cost of quality with a digitized quality system.
Yes, one of my favorite things to say when it comes to systems and process. A good system on steroids, or in this case on good connected data, will exponentially grow. And a bad system will also exponentially grow. So we need to make sure that our systems are connected, non-siloed, and we can see amazing results from cost effectiveness of implementing digital systems. Thanks again so much for your time today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jen to wrap up.
Thank you, Terrance, Rajesh, and Brian. These webinars will be available on demand at www.mastercontrol.com. We wish you all success as we transition and put COVID-19 in the rearview mirror. Thank you.